there, Amy here with Zoya today. She's thought we'd officially introduce you to my Quaker parrot, Zoya. She's photobombed a few videos, and but I've never talked about birds, and we've had some questions about birds. So I thought it is time to talk about birds. So this is Zoya, as I said, Quaker parrot. I've had her roughly 8 years. She was surrendered at a spay and neuter clinic I was working at on a reservation in northern Minnesota. She definitely had trauma. She would scream if anybody even came near her. We didn't touch her. She goes, yeah, that's right, guys. That's what I did. And so I brought her home with the intention of bringing her to a parrot rescue, but they were all full. No room in the inn. So she stayed with me. I got the appropriate cage. I got all that stuff. I helped volunteer at the parrot rescue, kind of in exchange for their help with her. So we learned together how to live together, didn't we? Yes. So by the time, like 6 months, when they were able to take her, she had kind of acclimated to our life. She was getting along with the dogs. She was out and about, like not quite this close, but she was in our life enough that I didn't have the heart to surrender her. So I still don't touch her with my hands. I can use like a dowel or other things, but she's still hand shy. And but as you can see, I will give her, she's kind of waiting. I have a little pumpkin seed here, and she will take those and she'll eat that with us, be close. So you've probably heard that we should never use essential oils around parrots. She goes, don't do it. That's because their respiratory system is very, very sensitive. They don't breathe like we do. They have lungs, but they also have 9 other air sacs. She's like, I want another one of those seeds, guys. Come on. So anyway, they have 9 air sacs, and it takes 2 respiratory cycles to move the air. She's keeping track of Nala here, who's down on the floor, real close. 2 cycles to move all the air. Are you going to take off now? Probably are, huh? Yeah. So 2 cycles to move the air through her entire system. Oh, and there she goes. So, so to move it in, through, and around, 2 inhales, to inhale, exhale, to move it through. And that system allows them to fly at high altitudes where the air pressure is lower. And she's back. So that is the really big concern about using essential oils with and around birds. As you can see, like I have a diffuser on my table here. It runs, she's around it, she's fine, but I would never run a diffuser right next to a bird cage, especially if they can't get away from it. Their sense of smell is very low. They do have a sense of smell because they can find food, they can forage for things, but they really rely on their tongue and texture to explore things, and eyesight. Their vision is their strongest sense. So olfactory system, kind of weak, but respiratory very sensitive, and vision very high. So that's what you have in a nutshell for these birds. Now, I've never used essential oils on her. I take that back. I did try a feather spray that is commonly recommended. She wasn't a really big fan, but I have diluted hydrosols and used those. That's very gentle. It's definitely the way I recommend going. Especially if you're going to start out with them, you can add hydrosols to a bath water. She goes, yes, do that. I used a neroli, a diluted neroli mist spray with her when we moved into this house to help her adjust and settle with some anxiety. Birds are very hesitant around anything new, so it takes a little while to get them used to something new. So I also would recommend putting like an essential oil bottle out, maybe even an empty bottle, so that they get used to the bottles. So if the day ever came that you'd want to offer them a bottle, sometimes they will suggest, they'll show you, depends on Depends on the bird, depends on if they need it. If they don't need anything, they're not going to select anything. So it would only be if there is an issue going on. We did use a hydrosol with a canary that had a little spot on the bottom of his foot, highly diluted, probably like, oh my goodness, less than 1/8 of a teaspoon in like an ounce of water. Very highly diluted, applied with a Q-tip, and it did help to settle. It didn't resolve it, but it's a canary, so I didn't want to push it. Canaries obviously are the most sensitive of the birds. Budgies next. If you go, I mean, this little one, pound for pound, is almost probably as tough as my dog. So, and then you get to the larger macaws, they're hardier, and then chickens are very hardy in the kind of in a class of their own. So you have to really take an individualized approach when you're working with birds. Be very cautious of their respiratory system, and then you should be okay. I would follow the same guidelines as with cats. I would avoid phenols. I would avoid some of those stronger, tea tree, any of those oils for sure. Work with the gentler, safer oils, kind of kid-safe oils to start. But it always highly diluted. Feather, like mist sprays, are the best way to introduce them. So any questions about birds, post them in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.